How do bees know where to go? And who figured that out? We see bees flying from flower to flower all the time. It looks automatic, like they just know exactly where they're headed. But if you really stop and think about it, how do they know which direction? How do they remember the distance? How does one bee communicate that to another? No one handed bees a map. At some point, someone had to notice that question and decide not to ignore it. They had to slow down and watch. Not once, not quickly, but over and over again. They noticed patterns. They observed bees returning to the hive. They paid attention to the movements the bees made. What looked like a small, simple motion turned out to be something much more intentional: the waggle dance, a way bees communicate direction and distance to each other. That fact didn't just appear in a book. It came from someone staying with a question long enough to investigate it. And when you start looking closely at bees, something else becomes clear. Bees don't just need flowers, they depend on plants, and many of those plants grow on or around trees. If you've ever looked closely at a tree, maybe noticing the rings inside the trunk or the roots pushing through a sidewalk, that's another place a question can begin. How does a tree grow that strong? Why do the roots spread so far? How does a tree survive season after season? Just like bees, those answers didn't show up overnight. Someone had to count tree rings. Someone had to study soil and root systems. Someone had to compare growth over time. Bees need trees. Trees depend on pollination. Roots support everything underground that we don't even see. And every part of that understanding started the same way, with someone asking, how does this work? I think sometimes we skip that middle part with kids. Kids are naturally good at the first step. They notice, they ask. How do they know? Why does that happen? What would happen if? But often we rush straight to the answer instead of helping them stay with the question. Investigation doesn't always mean a big experiment. Sometimes it means watching closely, trying something twice, comparing what happened yesterday to what's happening today, looking something up after you've made a guess. That middle space between the question and the fact is where the learning happens. Because when a child helps uncover an answer, even in a small way, that fact carries weight. It's not just information, it's something they traced back to its source. Every fact we share about bees, about trees, about roots growing beneath our feet exists because someone once paid attention long enough to investigate. And maybe that's the real goal. Not just raising kids who know facts, but raising kids who stay with a question long enough to follow it. Because behind every solid fact, there was once a small moment of curiosity that someone chose not to ignore.